Hype Plus, it's your boy K-Rob. Once upon a time in the PJs. If you grew up in the 90s or early 2000s, you may remember that as the opening line of the official theme song to the PJs, performed by the legendary George Clinton. The PJs was an American adult stop-motion sitcom created by and starring Eddie Murphy, along with Larry Wilmore and Steve Tompkins, both former and living color writers. With stop-motion animation created by the Will Vincent Studios, it was produced by the Murphy Company, Imagine Entertainment, in association with Touchstone Pictures, a milestone for the Walt Disney Company because it was their first adult-oriented animated show. A show featuring the voice of one of the biggest comedic performers of all time that also premiered with such huge ratings. It's often revered today as a classic, but people are often surprised how short-lived the show actually was outside of syndication when you compare it to other similar shows airing around that time, like The Simpsons and Futurama. So here's why the PJs ended. The show was created with the actor, comedian, and writer Larry Wilmore. Decided he no longer wanted to be a hired hand and decided to create his own projects. After informing his agent and after pitching several spec scripts, Larry was offered a development deal with Touchstone Pictures / the Walt Disney Company. Shortly after, Wilmore also received a call informing him that Eddie Murphy was interested in doing an animated show. Wilmore initially passed on the idea because he didn't want to do a Saturday morning cartoon, but changed his mind when it was further explained it would be a primetime sitcom instead. Murphy, who recently worked with Disney voicing the character Mushu in 1997's Mulan, wanted to do the sitcom, but felt all the animated sitcoms of that time looked the exact same. So Murphy pitched Muppet-like puppets in the projects, an idea Murphy had on Thanksgiving 1997 while watching the 1960 show Thunderbirds. They decided to go with the claymation instead. Wilmore enlisted help of friend, writer Steve Tompkins, and from there they began to shape the world of Thurgood Stubbs and the inhabitants of his neighborhood. The show's premise and themes. The PJs tell the story of Thurgood Stubbs and his wife Muriel in the Lawrence Hilton Jacobs housing project, where he is the superintendent, and the many adventures of the Stubbs and their friends, while taking a satirical view of the ups and downs of life in the Chicago, Illinois area, which was modeled after the Brewster Douglass public housing project in Detroit, Michigan. The show deals with social problems such as government efficiency, gang war, racial inequality, drug abuse, and poverty. At its core, the PJs is about people pulling together in the best of worst of times and helping each other out. Cast, crew, and production. The show boasts an amazing supporting voice cast, including Loretta Devine, Jeanette Dubois, Jennifer Lewis, Cassie Davis, and a slew of other great voice artists. With the claymation animation being produced by Will Vincent Studios, notable for creating the iconic California Raisins. The show being the first primetime series to feature stop-motion animation using the process of foamation. Each half-hour episode cost about $1 million and took over 2 months to produce. Will Vincent Studios' team included 150 people manipulating the bulbous foam figures on 4 identical sets. Protests and criticism. Before it made its official debut, the show was accused of showing TV audiences a negative view of inner city life and sparked protests leading up to its premiere, but it still managed to generate strong ratings. We were concerned that the show does not present an accurate and honest depiction of the African American community. It does present racially demeaning and offensive stereotypes. Earl Afari Hutchinson, the director of Coalition Against Media Exploitation. I kind of scratch my head why Eddie Murphy's doing this, because it shows no love at all for black people. I'm not saying that we're above being made fun of and stuff like that, but it's really hateful, I think, towards black people. Plain and simple. Spike Lee. We thought the show was emphasizing the negative, especially in showing African American men drinking. 40s. They agreed that after the first 13 episodes they completed have aired, Thurgood would stop drinking. NAACP branch president Billy Green. We met with the NAACP. They have no problem with the show now, but when we first showed them a scene with characters drinking 40s, they couldn't even hear the joke being made all around that scene. Namely, that it's stupid to sit around drinking all that liquor. These characters come from my life. I'm not allowed the same autobiographical options that a white writer would. Wilmore. If you ever been to a project, you know we've got crackheads, you've got hot chicks, you've got old croonies. Jeanette Dubois. There's a double standard. If a black actor played Smokey on a drama like NYPD Blue, he might get an Emmy nod for portraying a victim of addiction. But we're condemned because our addict's a cartoon character depicted as a multifaceted person? I don't get it. Tompkins. The PJs isn't belittling those who live in the housing developments. This is a unit of people who know each other, care about each other. They're into each other's lives. They're all into each other's business. Loretta Devine. Show's premiere. The show debuted on Fox on January 10, 1999, following the network's coverage of the NFC divisional playoffs. 2 days later, the second episode aired in its regular Tuesday night time slot. In its debut, the PJs pushed aside much of its competition to finish 13th for the week. Eddie's absence. When it came time to promote the PJs, Murphy himself stayed away from the talk show circuit and other interviews concerning the PJs. Unlike other major movie film stars that was linked to high-profile TV projects, even though his name was used in every piece of marketing material. The reason for his unavailability, sources close to him say, is that Murphy has been too wrapped up with films and family to devote time to discussing the show. The PJs wasn't the first project to deal with Murphy's absence. Aside from press junkets, Murphy has stayed off talk shows and away from print interviews from other films of that time, including Dr. Dolittle, Milan, and Holy Man. Murphy had been missing from the spotlight after the highly publicized May 1997 incident in which he was stopped by police in West Hollywood and being accompanied by a known transsexual prostitute. And several of the show's 8 executive producers said they did not feel that Murphy's unavailability to promote the show would hurt the show. Eddie has a very busy film schedule. He's doing 3 films with Imagine, plus working on this show. His performance and his contributions is promotion enough. Tony Kratz, Imagine Television co-chairman. In May of 1999, the New York Times article reported that Murphy denied reports of walking away from the show after being pulled from its original lineup. Eddie was just frustrated when we first got the news, says a source close to Murphy, but he's been in the studio recording new episodes, and it's all moving forward. Fox eventually ordered 22 additional episodes of the show for the following season. Allegedly, during the show's second season, Murphy became too busy with the film to come in and record for the show, so that led to the hiring of actor Phil Morris. Got called to come in on the PJs because Eddie was in New Jersey and didn't want to come out for every episode. And if they could find somebody to fill in for him for Thurgood Stubbs, so be it. So they hired me, and then I record with the other cast, but I would be in a separate booth so that if Eddie chose to be in the episode, they could just lift my voice right out. Morris. Even though Phil Morris debuted as the voice actor for Thurgood in the 11th episode of season 2, it wasn't until season 3 that Murphy stopped voicing him altogether, over disputes as well as being involved in other projects at the time. Other notable changes included smaller production budgets, outsourcing from Will Vincent Studios to Charge Productions, and Disney having no involvement in the 3rd season, as they were uninterested in making a 3rd season. Network switch and cancellation. After 2 seasons on Fox, the show moved to WB for a 3rd and final season. It began to air on Friday and Sunday night primetime slots, but unlike the previous seasons that early on saw an average of 9.1 viewers every week, the ratings would decline, and the budget did not justify a season 4. The show would ultimately end on May 20th, 2001, leaving 2 episodes unaired until 2003. Lawsuit. In April of 2002, it was reported that a Chicago janitor, Tally Collier, filed a lawsuit and that the show stole from an amateur documentary of Collier's life. He was seeking $75,000 in actual damages and $10 million in punitive damages from star and producer Murphy, Imagine Entertainment, including producers Ron Howard, Brian Grazer, and Tony Katz, animator Will Vincent, and the Fox Network. Collier alleges that the show stole his likeness for the supporting character of Sanchez, who speaks with an electronic voice box and walks with a cane, like Collier, and the likeness of others in the video, which was shot by Daryl Murphy, no relation to Eddie, and submitted to an Oprah Winfrey show in 1998. Murphy also requested that Winfrey pass the tape on to various Hollywood folk, including Howard, Spike Lee, Tom Hanks, Quincy Jones, Fred Williamson. However, Winfrey never responded to Murphy's unsolicited submission, and it's not clear that she actually passed the film on to anyone. The copyright infringement lawsuit against actor Eddie Murphy's production company came to an end after 6 years of litigation when the 17th Circuit dismissed the complaint. The district court ruled that the infringement had not occurred, explaining that the works were not similar and defendants did not have access to the videotape. The court also found that the PJs were created before the videotape. Show's legacy. A total of 44 episodes airing during the show's run of 2 years and 4 months. The PJs won 3 Emmy Awards and 1 Annie Award. The show has lived a second life in syndication on networks like Fuse, MTV2, and Cartoon Network's Adult Swim throughout the years. Most recently with a home video release and being added to streaming services, including Pluto TV, Peacock, and Kevin Hart's Laugh Out Loud. And more importantly, the show is commonly mentioned in conversations of blacks in animation. And for its animation style alone, the PJs is considered one of the most innovative sitcoms in history. And Thurgood, another memorable character under Murphy's belt. Stay up to date with the latest news and comedy by subscribing here to our YouTube channel. And follow Comedy Hype on all of our social media platforms. And look out for our new original content on our new streaming service at comedyhype.com. For Hype Plus, this has been your boy K-Rob.